Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we explore our hearts with curiosity and we inspire and we motivate people to live their best lives. So today is no exception. We have a special guest, Halle Porter. She has been dedicated to creating and sustaining her visions, and she's a people person. She's dedicated to wellness and advocacy, and I'm going to let her share her mission and tell us about her journey. She's had quite a journey, and it's a heroic. She's a heroine, um, heroine of the most pure kind, and I'm just really excited to bring forth her message. And Halle, thank you for being on Life of Love.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Wow. So you have always been a go-getter, right? Like you had 11 startup companies. You've written multiple books. You've been an entrepreneur, but you, along with the rest of the world, you got thrown a real fireball with a COVID coming on it. The fireball was connected to a COVID virus, and of the statistics were that you weren't going to make it because you were on the ventilator and you got the capital R word, resdesimy or whatever it's called, that usually was, if someone got that, they weren't going to make it. And I know because I followed the data on that situation, but we're all just trying to do our best, and I do believe that. Um, but you're on the other side. But you had some experiences, and I would love for you to share with the audience um, when you came out of your coma. Did you realize you had an experience? Like how did you describe it? And then also you had near death and spiritual, and then you had a third that you talked about, which I didn't even know about. So I'm really excited for you to share with my audience these messages you received, a gift from your coma. It's wild. It's wild how you find the silver lining.
Well, we're all still learning. I'm still learning. And so there's three. I just found this out when I joined IANS, which is International Association of Near Death Studies. So that group's been around, I think, around 30 years. And I actually went back to Washington, D.C. and met a bunch of them, amazing people, but it was still pretty new to me. I wasn't sure really what had happened to me. I think mostly because of the COVID fog I had. I still have it. And so as I progressed and learned, I realized there's out of body experiences, which is like astral traveling, which people can do that in a meditation state. And then there's the near death experience when, you're near death and you leave your body. A lot of people say like they're floating above their body and looking down or hearing conversations outside of their body. And then there's spiritual transformation, um, experience. And that was the one, yeah, I didn't even know that one existed until I went to the conference. And so I had all of them while I was in my coma. I was ventilated twice, and I was ventilated for 52 days and on a feeding tube for 63. So 70-day hospital stay. And I learned lots of things in my coma. I mean, I traveled everywhere. It's interesting because I traveled in my bed. And so my husband had COVID. He was home on oxygen. He's also a long COVID guy, and he couldn't even come see me for like 3.5 weeks. So my sisters were there. They realized intuitively that I needed someone in the hospital with me the 24/7, which was interesting. And I believe, and actually I just had that conversation with my sister. I believe I would have died if they weren't there because the staff was so thin.
Oh,
They had an extra floor for COVID. Half the people in there were dying. Half of them were on ventilators. Half of them were vaccinated. Half of them were not. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. And so all these experiences I had, I would tell them where I left, and went all these places, and they'd laugh. They'd go like, "You never left this room." I'm like, "Oh, yes, I did." So I traveled everywhere. So one of my near death experiences that I thought was ended up when I realized and learned about the spiritual transformational experience. I realized that was what that was. And I'm happy to share. Do you want me to share that one? with you?
Yes, yes.
And what do
My
you think about
my
mirrors?
brain is coming up with a million questions,
Yeah,
but I'm
just
gonna let you
interrupt. Right?
share that because I'm just like,
Yeah. So, okay. So that one
yes.
first, the spiritual transformational experience for me was when I had already had my near death. I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. And so trying to get the timeline all together, and realizing and looking back at photos and when the dates are of those and everything so things can come together. Well, so after the near death was the spiritual, and my mom, she had passed away a year and a half before. And a lot of people that I knew and that I didn't know told me after I got out of the hospital, that, your mom was there with you. Like there were spiritual people and she was always on your right side. And it was funny because, yeah, she was always on my right side. And this particular time she came to me and said, the one we hear all the time, it's not your time. Like we hear that, it really does happen. So she said, it's not your time and you need to fight. And as soon as she said fight, then appeared in front of me all of these grandparents. My brother passed away, my sister-in-law had a grandbaby that had passed away 6 months before. They all appeared in white in front of me and started chanting fight, which is interesting because I do not even like the word fight. Like I'm not really that kind of a fighter, I don't know, it seemed like it had a negative twist to it. And they all said fight. And every time they'd say it, a whole new group behind them would come. My kids, my siblings, aunts, uncles, friends. I mean, you name it. As far back as I could see, they were chanting fight, fight, fight. But I actually had that painted. It's a 6 foot by 4 foot painting in my, what I call the healing room of my house. And I have that there. I had it painted because it was so important to me that that had happened. And that was the moment that I knew you're not going to die. Because I mean, there were many days that I prayed, if this is it, like I'm suffering here. If this is it, get me out of here. This is not enjoyable. Just let's go, right? Let's define the moment and get me out of here or get me better. That was my other thought. So that was when I knew I'd get better.
Right.
Out of body, I'll share real quickly on that. Out of body, I would
Well,
travel.
wait, wait, wait. I'm gonna
Oh, yeah,
stop you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, Holly, can I stop you? So your mom led this. She was the first one to say fight. And
Yeah.
then I'm picturing waves of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, was there a feeling? Did you feel their heart energy? Was there like this, I mean, it was a word fight, but also did you have an energetic feeling at that time that like a healing feeling or um it just can you expand on what because you didn't associate with a word fight, but I'm just wondering if there's an energetic like through
But
the
it was
ethers
still,
that you felt.
yeah, because I didn't like the word, but it didn't bug me at the time. I remember it was just, I mean, it's weird because they were almost chanting, but it was peace. It was joy and love. And it was like, we're here for you and we are cheering you on and you are going to get better. So fight, fight, fight. It was just like this. I mean, I felt like it's like when you look in a mirror and you can see back as many times as you can, of a reflection. It was like that of people.
Mhm.
It just went on and on. I could only paint 26 people in my painting. I was really kind of disappointed in that. So I put shadows in the back just for me. But it was it was interesting. Like there were little
Oh, so
things.
you painted it or
I had it
yeah,
painted, but I have a painting of it. Yeah, the
you
vision.
had it paint okay.
And the
Oh my
vision's actually
gosh.
turned because I'm in my bed and it's turned, to be able to visualize it better. When they were really in front of me, they were like above me, um, is how I saw them, like for real life. But anyway. And my grandbaby
And that was
was,
after your near death experience. Oh, your grandbaby, sorry.
no, you're fine. I should say my grandbaby,
You
ironically, I painted her like I remembered her because she was just, a couple days old when she passed away. But she wasn't a couple days old. She was like a mature adult. But I knew it was her. That was what was really, really neat. And so
you know it was her.
the interesting thing is, so that was the spiritual part of it, but the out of body, can I, you okay? Can I go there? Okay. So out of body,
Yeah, 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 please.
I, so I went back in time. This is really interesting. So I started putting pieces together after I got out of the hospital because I was like, while I was there, in this experience, I kept going back to this town called Parwin. It's in Parwin, Utah. Okay. And I don't really have any reason to think of Parwin, Utah, other than I do have a great, great, great grandfather who has a home there called the Jesse M. Smith House. And I knew that. And I knew it's kind of like a museum type thing now, but it's a very, very small town. Why on earth I kept going back there? But it's like I would go back like 200 years ago. I never went future. I always went past. So my out of body experiences, almost all of them were in this town called Parwin. And I mean, I could tell you lots of funny stories, but the bottom line is I still haven't gone back to that house to check it out. And I'm not afraid to. I just haven't like made the effort because I want to do it because there was some really actually kind of creepy things that I would love to unsee that I saw. When,
Mhm.
I mean, just things that I don't want to see again, right? There was a creepy field. There was lots of weird stuff. So that was an interesting thing, to have those experiences. And then the near death experience that I had was, um, I never saw myself leave my body, and I don't for sure know who my guide was. I mean, jokingly, I say we all have to go through training, right? And I feel like, because when I came back, I told my sister, she said, that's how I figured out when the timing was of when I had it, because she said they unvented you for 24 hours and then they revented you because I wasn't doing well. That was when I could talk. And she says, oh boy, did you talk? Because I had a lot to say. I told her I got kidnapped. And I feel like I got kidnapped because whoever took me wasn't supposed to, because obviously I'm back here, right? So where they took me, I wasn't supposed to be there, or I was only supposed to be there for a minute. But I felt kidnapped because I had her, like, I remember seeing people in my room and I had her opening the closets and checking things out in the room, because I swore people were in there. Well, I saw people were in there. There were spirits in there. She just couldn't see them. And so this particular time, yeah, this near death experience where I went was just, I mean, amazing. And I didn't realize till months later that what I had experienced, I mean, I said I was in like a concert, and it was the best concert I'd ever been to. And they sounded like angels. I mean, I'm listening to my words I'm using later going, how did I not figure this out sooner? But the brain fog, I'm going to blame. And it was angelic, and people were talking, but they weren't talking, and they were floating, they weren't walking. And I mean, just all the things that, I saw. I mean, I was never afraid to die. I definitely am not now, but I understand, and the colors that you see and the peace that you feel and the love that you feel. I mean, you just can't even describe. And if you've heard anyone else talk about their near death experience, you probably have heard them say similar words, because that I think that the love is what I think everyone, well, I should say everyone. Some people do get to a dark space, I think too. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, well, that's why I was just wondering. So when you felt like you were kidnapped, that was an outer body experience, not your near death?
No, that was my near death,
Or
because
how do you that was your
I think whoever took me in my near death, like my guide or whoever that
Mhm.
was, because I don't see a face or anything, that I remember. But I think they took me and they weren't supposed to. I think they were in training. I think they were green and they were training them or something. I don't know. I feel like maybe I was pulled there premature, and then it was like, oops, get her back. I feel that. I energetically and intuitively, I feel that.
Mhm.
I say it jokingly because how do you say you're kidnapped if you were in a place like that? I wouldn't feel kidnapped if I was in the place I was at. I don't feel like that was not a good place. So why would I come back and say I felt kidnapped? I feel like I said that because I wasn't supposed to go. I wasn't supposed to die. I wasn't supposed to leave. And I did.
Mm.
So
And that's how you were rationalizing that you returned.
yeah,
And what a blessing, because so many people sat in the hospital by themselves with COVID and weren't allowed to have family.
which is why I think
I
they
know that
died.
happened in my community.
Yeah. Everybody, this is what I
Yeah,
say.
someone to, if you, yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, if you came out of that situation and you didn't have anyone to reassure you,
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what often I follow near death experiences and they're like, well, I don't know what it's like if you don't come back because I came back, right? Like
Right.
they don't know the next step because you didn't live to tell it.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, it's just begs the question.
I think a lot of people I've had ask me that maybe lost people in comas or, that didn't survive, they would say, do you remember being in pain? Do you remember, like, what do you remember? And I just always give them a positive feedback on that because I mean, I had some crazy stuff happen that I didn't like, but the bottom line is I believe you're dreaming. I believe that you're in places that you're creating and you want to get out of probably where you're at if you're in pain. So I think it's positive. I think that where people and what they see and what they feel, they want good. I mean, we all want good, right? And so I think if you're looking to create, it's going to be that. So people that see dark things, I'm not sure why that is. Like, I don't know. I'm no expert.
Yeah. Well, it's heroin. Sorry.
Heroin.
I don't write it. Do you ever dream about that now?
I actually have tried to. I don't feel like I see any more than I already saw. It's interesting how much I mean, with all the COVID fog, it is interesting how much I remember of what, things that happened, good or bad. There were a lot of scenarios and a lot of situations. And, like for instance, I told my sister, she also does real estate and she was buying an Airbnb. And one of the times that I was in Parwin was actually current time, which was weird because it was always pioneer time when I was back there. And I said to her, I was staying in, so one side of where I was the hospital, and the other side was this Airbnb that she had bought. Well, I didn't know she was buying an Airbnb. So possibly she was talking about it or on the phone while she was in the room with me, because I remember staying in there and
Mhm.
I remember feeling all luxury because it was this nice plush bed. It wasn't my hospital bed. And everywhere I traveled was in my hospital bed. So it's like consciously, I felt like if I didn't take my bed with me where I went, then I wouldn't get my body back. I'm thinking that maybe is what was
Yeah.
happening because everywhere I traveled, it was like in my bed, except my out of body or my near death experience. This is one thing that is really interesting that happened. When I went to this concert, right? What I told her was happening was we went in our beds. So I went there in my bed, but I didn't stay in my bed. So there's a difference. That's when I think the near
Mhm.
death happened. I believe because I said all of the people that went in their beds to see the concert, we got all the boxes. Like if it was a big stadium and all the boxes where all the, businesses own and wealthy people are up there watching whatever. That's where all the people in the hospital beds got to be because they were in their bed. They couldn't get out. So we got these luxury seats, right? I believe that those were the people that were dying. I went with them except I came back. I got out of my bed, had my experience, and then I came back. So that's kind of like just me thinking it out because they told me so many people were dying in the hospital. In fact, I ran into a guy that's delivered body bags to the hospital during that time because his wife was telling him, "Hey, my friend's there right now. It's not looking good. Everybody's really worried about her." And so he tried to like see what he could find out. But he said, it was really eerie because every time he'd bring an order of these, he says, you wouldn't even believe how many body bags we were bringing in. And he goes, I always knew that when these come out of here, they have somebody in them. It was just a sad feeling for him that he's delivering something that's not good. So just different things like that I've heard over the last couple years from people filling in little gaps because there were a lot of pieces missing for me.
I know it made me think about magic carpet ride and you're in your bed. It's not a magic carpet. You're in your hospital bed. That was a visual when you first said it. And then I thought I was just dreaming up something, but then you confirm that yes, you're
Yeah,
traveling in your bed like a magic carpet.
that's actually going to be one of the chapters in the book.
Oh
Me in
my
my bed.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like amazing what we can come up with, I mean, just that's so real. And you couldn't argue with me and tell me that stuff didn't happen. I mean, I would argue it forever because that stuff's very clear. Like it's interesting how your memory isn't there, but there were certain things that I'll never forget. I mean, they just, yeah. I believe my near death experience, I got a
Yeah.
few pieces put together when I did a hypnosis session with somebody I knew. And I said, help me fill in some gaps. And that was pretty cool, that experience, because it did fill in some gaps. And I also think, like he said to me, you will remember when the time is to remember. And I believe that. I think the reason I have those gaps is because they're not supposed to be revealed to me right now. I'm not supposed to remember certain things. And I don't know if that's to protect me or just because I'm not ready for it. I'm not sure, but I still feel like there was some experiences, but do you have a couple more minutes if I tell you a couple more things?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I just want to ask, you know, and let the audience know that you were driven to start a nonprofit
Yeah.
to fulfill your mission as you received it in your coma, called Adventure Bucket List, where you
Yeah.
help people who are suffering from the effects. So
Yeah.
this has become part of your life, not your whole life mission, but one part, because you do so much. But I was just wondering, through that foundation, have you shared any of your near death experience stories? Do any of the other long COVID survivors have similar stories, or can you collaborate with them? I'm just really curious.
Yeah, to be determined. We're starting our podcast as well. And so we have it kind of separated out into weeks, like a couple weeks a month. We'll interview people with long COVID. We'll interview the caretakers. We'll interview medical and science, things like that. I don't obviously want it about religion or politics. I just really want it about hope and
Mhm.
survival. But yeah, the nonprofit, I pretty much in my coma was told to start this nonprofit. I always wanted one, but I never could land on anything. There were so many good causes,
Mm.
but I knew it needed to be something I started because I'm a starter. And so it's called Adventure Bucket Wish, not List, Wish Foundation.
Oh,
And
wish.
so
Thank you. Thank
adventure,
you.
yeah, no, it's easy to get because but
Bucket
it's
wish.
yeah, for anyone with long
Bucket
COVID, and
wish.
we're really here just to advocate and support, and we do create not just wishes but memories and experiences. We've granted 3 wishes so far.
Okay. Well,
So
I oh, well, I didn't want to get caught up in your hypnosis results and not be able to give a shout out to that, because that's a huge part of what I want to hold space for you, and this magical thing that you've done to, make some lemonade out of some lemons, and just, it's a divine calling. And so, yeah, so please, I'm dying. I'm on the edge of my seat about your what you uncovered in your hypnosis session.
well, okay, two main things. I saw first when I got there, I was actually in the dark, and it wasn't really dark, but it was like a cobalt blue. I mean, the colors are so different over there on the other side. They're just different. They're hard to explain, but it was like not black, but it was like blue. And I saw an eye, and I thought it was like on a mountain, one eye on a mountain. And I was like, what's going on with that? So I noticed that. And then I saw this tree, and it was so confirming because when I started, I have a software company that's called Retreat R&R. And I knew when we were making the marketing and the branding of I said, I just really feel strongly that it needs to have a tree as the main logo. And so that's what they did. It ended up having 11 leaves and 11 branches on it, which is super 1 1 1 1, which is super significant. So when I had this hypnosis session, here sits this tree, totally confirming that was one thing I didn't remember in my near death. Totally confirming that tree, and trees have so many meanings. They're grounded, they're rooted, they just they have so much stuff. Well, the tree like split to where the light side was to the left side and the dark side was to the right side. But I couldn't get to the light side. And through this hypnosis session, he actually we called it an entity, and entities don't always have to be, dark or bad, but it was an entity that couldn't come all together. It would come together and then disperse. And so I was trying to explain it as everything was swirling around in this session. Basically, he said, when I count backwards 3 to 1, I want you to tell me his name. His name. I was like, am I going to know his name? Darby. As soon as he said 1, I said Darby. I have no Darby. And ironically, my sister, another sister, just told me last week that when she was a little kid, she was telling my mom that something about Darby. When I told her the story, she was like, that was the name I told mom. And I was like, okay, that's just weird. Well, come to find out, Darby wasn't any relation to me. He just wanted my light. And so he was stopping me from going to the light. And he just kept and he wasn't evil or anything,
Mhm.
but he said I was too strong and my light was too strong, that he couldn't hang on to me. And all he wanted was my light. The light was going to take me no matter what. He had to let me go because he wasn't able to go into the light. And so that was kind of a weird thing. And so I was able to climb up the tree, go over off to that side and go over into the light. But the cool thing was I saw all these little shadows and things. They were making swirls, and the swirls were shaped as hearts in this like cobalt blue, gray, darker color. But they were all pushing to the left as they were pushing up these hearts. And I was like, huh. So that I just noticed that. That was interesting. When I got to the other side and it was the light, and this was where I was going to go over to this concert, so to speak. And I got over there, all of those hearts now turn to rose quartz. They were like a rose quartz color and making the hearts. And you know what was funny is when we did our nonprofit, I made these hope ornaments because it was November when we had our gala. And I knew every one of those needed to have a rose quartz heart in them. So that was like so cool because I was like, oh, so like I
Wow.
knew it all along, but I didn't know why. And the hypnosis session kind of like gave me some whys. So that was really cool. My life,
Mhm.
in the end, he pulled me out of it too soon, I think, because I was really enjoying the end result, right? And I think the life review for me didn't that I saw, and again, it might be revealed to me later, but I didn't see any negative. Like you see, like I know after the pain I have felt through with some family members since all this has happened, like I know from listening to other
Mhm.
people's stories that we have to feel the pain that we cause somebody. We have to feel that in our life review. And that makes me very, very cautious now in, just making sure I remember that and how I treat people. Because how I felt in a family situation, I would not wish on my worst enemy, let alone my family member. And so I was there thinking, am I going to see the negative stuff? And I didn't. I saw only people hugging and the love, and it was all about love. And I was grateful because I felt like I've seen enough crap the last couple of years since I've lived that I don't know if I could have handled that. And I think that was part of it. He would say in this hypnosis,
Yeah.
when you're ready to see what you need to see, it will be revealed to you. And I really believe that. So then he pulled me out of it, and that was it. That's
Right.
all I
And
got.
that message of hope. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you keep getting uplifted because you have the serve you're here to serve. You're here to bring up and give that hope. So you're getting reinforced that it's part of you. And gosh, it's such a great message to let people know that, I don't mean to plug the name of my show, but your heart, your life of love is really, really important. Like it's something to dedicate, if you can keep in your heart center. And it doesn't mean things are always going to be easy, but stay true to your heart and know that on the other side, that's the kind of stuff that matters. Like
Yeah.
the kind of paint on your wall or the car you drive isn't part of your life review. It's your heart energy, and there's beings and the entity that you met for whatever reason they couldn't get to that love, and they sort of wanted yours. It's such a good symbol, and it's something people can hold on to. Thank you for sharing that. It's a very intimate thing to share, a past life regression, a hypnosis. Those things it's raw. So thank you so much.
Well, it just
And
reiterated.
you're a
Right.
certified hypnotist as well.
Oh, sorry.
Right, you're on the right path. Yeah. Well, we're coming up on our time, and I can't wait to hear about your podcast, and to hold space for people who might have a story to share, but they're not sure if people are ready to hear it. And I do think that more and more people are ready to hear of things that aren't noticeable to everybody on an everyday level. Have you, since you came back, are you able to see or feel more things that are in the ethers? Has that stayed with you at all?
Yeah, I think not like a lot of people I've heard stories on, um, but I went through a really negative experience, for the last couple years that was, I think, hindering it. And I think there were some lessons in there that I'm still kind of dissecting to see. But I mean, because my intuition, I feel like I've always had really good intuition, but I feel like, yeah, that's definitely turned up a little more. But I feel like with the experiences I've had in the last couple of years, that maybe that turned it down, like it was turned up, but they like covered it up. Does that make sense? And so I feel like that
Well,
that'll be opening
yeah,
up a little more. Yeah.
right. Well, you described it. We don't need to get into it because it's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, you had life events that would lower anybody's vibration, and in order to connect with the on the
Yeah.
other side, there's a vibration height that is sustained
Yeah.
that I could see why you weren't able to reach it.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with a lot of earthly things.
Yeah. Somebody said to me that your vibration when you came back was probably a lot higher. And that's why it turned everything upside down because you couldn't match. And they said, don't come down to that. Stay where you are. Bring people up. Don't come down to them. And I thought that was an interesting observation.
Yeah, and I think it's if you feel ascension symptoms and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't tolerate this." Like you go through a detox. You
Yeah.
detox friendships. Like suddenly friendships aren't serving either party anymore. Like there's the energy isn't there for whatever reason. I detoxed diets. Like I couldn't eat certain foods, and there's it's a definite time of readjusting, and it's not forever. Like there'll be other times where you're just like, I just can't do this. I can't be here. I can't watch a violent show anymore. It's just like it'll wreck my world. Like, it's not like I can go watch a horror movie. I just
Yeah.
can't do it anymore. Like, and that used to be sort of fun to be on the edge of the seat, but it's like
Yeah.
your life changes as you have these experiences. And I haven't had a near death experience like you have. I can relate to those detox. It's the only thing I can call it is a detox. Like you have to go through it and you examine it and you're like, this works or it doesn't. And it's black and white. I hate to say it's like, for sure when it's not serving you.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
It's
well,
intolerable. And I always say is God's given you space for something you need space for because you can't hold on to everything in your life. You have to make space for new, and you're definitely a creator. So, you know, I honor your journey, sister. It's just beautiful, and thanks for sharing it.
well, thanks for what you do in the world because it's so needed and that hope and love, I mean, and kindness, we just need to spread. We need more people out there spreading it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy. Anytime, anytime you can be on, I'll be happy to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it.